Well, hello everyone out there, creatives, community, and kind folks. It's RPG with DBJ. We're heading down the stretch. Today is the fourth episode of our demi-daily deep dive into our favorite RPG mechanics. And of course, in the beginning of the show, we talked about things like advantage and disadvantage on episode one. We brought up various dice mechanics and dice randomizers, whether it's cards or tarot cards or playing cards and things like that. But we still have many things that we can talk about in terms of our favorite mechanics. This one is going to be this might take up the whole episode, although I do have a few notes. We're going to talk about magic systems. And talking about magic systems, we're going to talk about, Morse code. That's cool. Never learned Morse code, except for SOS. So while talking, reminded me of Morse code. I just went down a rabbit hole myself. Makes me think of when we talk about magic systems, like re-engineering things. And it doesn't necessarily mean your game, let's say you're trying to design something. It doesn't have to be magic. It could be psionics. It could be some kind of a spiritual connection or something. But usually in role-playing games, there's some kind of outward force or inward ability, such as the Force in Star Wars, or maybe there's an alien race that can read minds or something in Star Trek or something. Mage the Ascension. So we're going to talk about and get some general ideas on magic systems, and then we're just going to break down how various magic systems are used. Now, I wrote some details, things like magic systems using points, slots, narrative, and verb noun systems. There's probably others, and I guarantee you I'm using verbiage that might be a little bit underwhelming, or maybe not as descriptive as I would like. So for example, slot systems are your classic Dungeons and Dragons, where you pick from a list of abilities, whether it's I can levitate through the air. I'm also going to pick reading languages I don't understand. I'm going to pick another one of my slots. I'm going to pick something where I can generate light, etc. And usually those kind of slot systems have an extensive list of abilities, and you either have them or you don't, and they are either on or off. And there's a few details thereof. Of course, Vincent brings up the fact of Mage the Ascension. It has an interesting magic system with a lot of freedom. Jenny says, "Uh-oh." Probably referring to a couple of things. My tendency to watch squirrels and be distracted by squirrels, and talking about magic systems in general. Vincent says, I played one-on-one with my GM, and it's interesting to play a character which dreams or has an internal world suddenly becomes tangible. My character is very strict female, but inherently she is a child, and she found a guy who she thinks is a secret agent, so all her magic is based on Q gadgets. Oh, cool. Now, considering what Vince is talking about with Mage the Ascension, White Wolf's Mage the Ascension system is extremely flexible. It is way on the other end of slot picking systems. The advantage of slot systems is that usually slot systems have a lot of detail to them, right? It generally gives you some parameters in your ability to use them. You either spend the slot and do it, or you don't do it. You have 3 slots or 7 slots, and everyone understands those numbers, and you pick what you want. Usually you're able to pick how many times you can do them, or depending on the game, if you pick 3 abilities, you just have access to those 3 abilities, et cetera, et cetera. Some slot systems just allow you to do something and it exists beyond the character. So, for example, I create light, and the light lasts for 10 minutes, and then the character gets to do other things while this light remains for 10 minutes. There are some point systems or point hybrid systems in which I pick 3 things for my slots, and then when I use those abilities, I have to pay some kind of points, whether it's like endurance or spirit or affinity or quintessence or something of that nature. Vince said, Jenny says, my fear with Magicka systems is that they demystify the phenomenon. Yeah, that can be a very difficult issue if the magic system, especially if the magic system is in the hands of the players, because when magic systems are described from like books or movies or something where it seems very, very mysterious, almost living like, it has these weird and chaotic or corruptive elements to them. The minute you just demystify it and bring it down into the game, it kind of loses its ability, right? It loses its power. And a lot of times, especially if I'm thinking of Conan in my head, so maybe I should actually say it out loud. Thinking of Conan, the Conan books, and the idea of magic in Conan is that magic is evil. There are very few character traits that allow you to even have magic, and when you do, it can be a corruptive force or can cause corruptive elements around you, whether you lose control of it or it draws you towards an evil or dark side or something like that, or maybe it harms one or more people and you didn't have an intention to do that. So when you remove those elements, it does demystify it. I believe you. I'm with you on that. Vincent says the problem I have with the Mage magic system is that it is very vague, but at the same time very strict. It is hard to know how many dots you need to have to do what you actually want to do. That's what it does in a lot of systems for sure, Janny, but it's hard to fight that without that aspect. You basically have to have magic very limited to PCs. And Janny says, responds is, or don't give the players the ability to yield magic. And oftentimes, like, for example, it's the world's most popular role-playing game, Dungeons and Dragons, has completely removed mysticism from it. So you either cast light or you don't. You heal or you don't. You fly or you don't. You shoot a bolt of lightning or you don't. You cast a magic missile or you don't. There are no other side effects to it. There's no endurance loss. There's no fear of drawing enemies from afar. There's no loss of, there's no confusion or being stunned or being blinded or something like that, which, depending on a session 0, you could make up a chart or some dice or get the cinematic environs, wild magic cards, and pick and choose the cards you want in there and use those as randomizers themselves. And side note, they're not as gonzo as the chaos magic that's in 5th edition. It's far more thematic and reasonable for getting great results or bad results. Vince says, I always find it weird in some settings that PCs have magic. In Lord of the Rings, only godlike beings can wield magic, so when Lord of the Rings Online made magic available to players, it felt wrong to me. And there are plenty of settings, right, that are like that, where the wielding of magic itself is something that's far beyond the PCs, and even the rare PCs, even the rare main characters who have it at such a low level that it's like, hey, I'm going to cast this spell. 30 minutes later, I'm done, or I'm going to cast this spell to keep your wound from being infected, or I'm going to cast this spell and I have to have all of my concentration. So everyone needs to stand around me because it's going to take me a while and I will be limited. Hey, kitty. Jenny says, in my opinion, Witcher does the magic right. Nobody knows what it is, and they study it with the scientific method. So in a way, it's a sci-fi setting, especially how you think of it, and apply it, especially like the setting like Eberron, which extrapolated the magic system of Dungeons and Dragons, so that you do have homes with, cities, streets lined with continual light spells, or messages being flown by gargoyles or something on scrolls that cannot be read except by the application of a spell on the other end, which allows the writing to be seen or something. I always imagine people taking showers with underneath storm clouds. So the rain, a nice rain comes down, and then when you're done, a little tornado wind dries you off as you come out of the alcove, that kind of thing, where magic has supplanted what we think of as technology. So using other systems, the slot system is one end of it. The Mage Ascension system is way on the other end. Mage Ascension system, magic system, is basically, okay, you have two variables. One variable is your arete. There's some people just call it arat, but arete is your skill in wielding the magic. And so if you have a very high arete, you're very good at it. You have a low arete, you are not skilled at all. And then your other variable are your dots, your levels from 1 through 5, if you're just playing a basic game, in how you can wield the magic. And there are 9 spheres, and those spheres are like your power. I want to say you're like your power matrix. And that power matrix allows you to pick from those things. And those power matrices are things like life, matter, energy, co-location. I don't have the book in front of me. A mind, a spirit, time, and those things. And then they're ranked from 1 through 5, and it's very vague, right? Essentially 1 through 5 corresponds to self, touch. It's like self, touch, range with slight modification, the ability to manipulate, and lastly, the ability to do what you want. And it is very vague because there are no generally spells. You just have dots in those abilities, and you use your arete to manipulate them. Like Vincent says, 1 is detection, 2 is self, 3 is slight control, 4 is major control, 5 is do what you want. Exactly. So if you have 1 dot in any of those abilities, you have the ability to detect that sphere. So if you have 1 dot in life, you kind of have like biodetection. You can tell whether something is alive or dead. You can probably tell if they're unconscious or asleep or injured, what kind of life form it is. If you have 1 dot in matter, you are you're a CSI agent. You can detect things like maybe it's X-ray vision, or what kind of element is it? Is it radioactive? Is it poisonous? Things like that. 1 dot in time allows you to probably detect, and I'm sure a 1 dot in any of those spheres allows you to detect the use of those spheres by other people or individuals. So with time, can I detect someone else is using time around me? Has someone used time to remove the rust from the chrome bumper of this car, making it useful or something, that kind of thing. And so, but when you get up in the higher dots, 2, 3, 4, it can become a little bit disconcerting, because 3 is slight control, 4 is major control. What's the difference? I usually think of slight control as just being able to move things around, where major control is you can highly disrupt something. So if you have energy, a dot of 3, if you make a bright light, you're taking light from somewhere else, so it gets dark around you to make the bright light. You take the light out of the room. Or if you want to be a pyromancer, you are taking fire, but it becomes cold around you or something like that. But Mage the Ascension is very variable because the mages in that game manipulate reality. Their belief, the I don't want to go down the setting, but okay, the setting is that whatever you think is real, whatever your beliefs are, it exists. The world we live in today is not the entire world. It was created and solidified by the technocracy. So in that world, it's not a matter of I'm going to study some magic and just cast some general spells. Really, your character is manipulating reality beyond the scope of the sleepers around you who think that the reality that we live in today is that is all there is. Looking at the looking at the chat, Vince says my character is focused on matter and prime to create her gadgets and weird energies that power them. Yeah, prime is the one sphere that allows the magic to remain tangible and long lasting. Most magic fades away, especially if a sleeper, if a human being sees it or encounters it or something. Vince says there are concrete examples for each dot in each discipline. Yeah, I agree, but it is very. But he continues to say it is very vague. For example, prime is usually raw magic, but excuse me, Kitty. But to try to charge a battery with it, would it work? I tried that actually in game without knowing the rules at all. Azala, morning, folks. Yeah. Now. There are other systems. I think one system that has been highly overlooked is the system in Ars Magicka. And in Ars Magicka, they have a verb noun system. And I'm kind of surprised the verb noun system hasn't or derivation thereof hasn't spread further in other games or iterations. So their magic system is a hybrid version of it. So for example, the Ars Magicka verb noun system means that you have the ability to pick one or more verbs for your character, and then you pick a few nouns, which is the sphere of magic you control. And Ars Magicka is also available in Latin. Yeah, I love the description of the verb nouns usage in Latin. I think that's very evocative. So for example, you may have I'm trying to think of some of the Latin verbiage. Mortem, we, which is spelled V-I-S, Creo, Ignum, those kind of things. So I'm not very familiar with Dark Eye, and I know it's very popular, but not so much here in the States, but across the pond, yes, the Dark Eye is very popular. I wish I could get a copy of it just to know that I had one that I could read. Okay, so the verb noun system is basically you pick a verb, and the verb may be control, manipulate, destroy, create, obscure, discover, those kind of things. And the words used are in Latin, right? And then you combine that with your noun, which is fire, mind, life, plants, air, that kind of thing. So when your character is created, you pick one of your verbs. I control, and then you pick a noun, air. You may pick another one. I destroy, and then you pick for your verb, and then your noun would be stone. And in that way, even people who have the similar abilities, let's say 3 characters have abilities, they all pick plants because they want to be like druidic types. If they pick different verbs, each one is something different. If one can manipulate plants, another can destroy plants, and then a third PC can transform plants. Then they have example spells as well, but they each have the ability to affect magic in that way, and it limits what they can do when they create spontaneous magic. So it does have a slot system, but there is a spontaneous magic component to it, and you are limited by your verb noun decision. Vincent says the magic system in the Dark Eye works like this. You got a pool of mana to cast spells, and each spell is learned and increased like normal skill. The more complex a spell is, the harder it is. Learn it. So it is to learn. So a fireball is harder to learn than a firebolt, for example. And each time you cast a spell, you must make a skill check. You can modify based on the spell. A light spell used to shoot light out in the sky to attract others to you, for example, and then the spell's cast and the mana is used up. And that's something Dungeons and Dragons has never really used this, although for those who want to just they have a point system in the Dungeon Master's Guide, but the idea of using mana or magic or prana or some other kind of point system to modify your success or the reach of the spell or the power of it or the duration that's used more often than not, I think, in a lot of systems. But I do feel that the repercussions of using magic are often really, kitty, I'm petting you and you're upset. Whatever. Don't hit me. So we're having an argument here, me and Sophie. Sophia is her name because she thinks she's Sophia Loren. So the magic systems are often hybrid systems, and when you put magic in the hands of player characters, especially, there has to be some form of limitation. But I do feel that a lot of the mysticism in it, the mystery of what will happen when you use it, leaving residue behind, going insane, becoming, like I said, becoming confused or exhausted, or creating an effect that you weren't intending to create, and having it grow beyond you or becoming corrupted or something. A lot of that is not added in game systems, and frankly, I would say that there's some players that really don't want to have those abilities. But unfortunately, if you don't add it in, you end up getting to a point like in 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons, it doesn't really benefit you to play a character that doesn't have some magic, right? Like it's so ubiquitous that it's like, well, I'm going to play a character fighter that has magic. I'm going to play, a thief that has some kind of magic or something. Vincent says it is a lot more deep than that in praxis, with different magic schools giving bonuses to different spells. It's very flexible. You can learn very hard spells from the start if you want to buy them, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah, fewer spells. But the problem is that oftentimes in lower levels, you fail your spell check because you don't have enough ranks in it yet, which is super frustrating. And that's, that can be a thing too. Like if starting characters don't have a lot of high ranks in their abilities, like the D6 system for Star Wars had that air quote problem for using the Force, but I think that's kind of the point, that magic is supposed to be hard to do. And so, but unfortunately, when you have movies and books to say, oh, wow, I could do all these Force abilities, and then you start to play the game and you can't do anything, it can be kind of frustrating. Gonzalez says, meanwhile, here I am not caring about magic at all. Fighters and barbarians. Yeah. In all our late game uselessness. Yeah. Vince says, talk about fumble casting spell, which can be really bad. And Jenny says you could outsource magic to an NPC. Yeah, but then you're having a GNPC, and that a GM. A GMPC just becomes really frustrating for the party, because it's like, okay, here's a person who, GM's thinking like, okay, they can't be hurt. They know everything. The PCs have to fold their arms and wait for the magic to be done. Yeah, it's temporarily, sure, but like on a long-term thing, no. And then of course you fall into the trap of people being used to, how many times have you seen on forums or something, someone says, we don't have a healer, in our adventuring party. This sucks. It's just like, then it just becomes ubiquitous and you go down the same rabbit hole, I believe. Alex C says, what's wrong with being a non-caster? I'd rather crush my enemy's skull with my bare hands. Magic's cheap. It depends on the game system. Magic is easy in 5th edition, and having magic to do easy things, such as it kind of defeats the purpose of having, say, like a survivalist game, or because you can easily bring food and water. I can't get lost. I can't. I don't suffer anything if I fall down. I'm not afraid of the dark because I have light and those things. And when you have easy buttons, kind of takes the mystery of the world away, when it's so easy to do and there are no repercussions for it. So yeah. A Foolish Kiwi says, always play with at least partially magic characters, at least spell-like abilities or key powers or something. The more utility, the better. Exactly. And that's another thing too, that, like, for example, sometimes it's just a matter of verbiage, words, descriptors, rather than the abilities themselves. I understand that there's plenty of people who are waiting for a psionic system to appear in 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons, but if you just rename the spells something else, I think you're done. If you create, if you rename, Mage Hand Telekinesis and Magic Missile, Telekinetic Force or something, I think you're perfectly fine just doing that. I don't know why they've never done that. I think it's just legacy from having the old psionic system before. But yeah, you can make. I mean, if you have a setting that you're trying to create and you just want psionics, I don't believe there's any need to jump through hoops to try to. I need to make it completely different than the magic system I have in my own game. That's just rename it. Just like key powers. If you're playing you're playing a martial artist and you have certain abilities. You want a Hurricane. Just get a magic missile and call it something else. Or a fireball and call it something else, or a lightning bolt, call it something else. Janice says, talking about Conan, in his world, magic is pretty rare and it does show up. Even Conan is shitting bricks. Yeah, if the system is one in which when magic shows up, like everybody needs to run, yeah. Yeah, it's kind of thing. Vincent brings up a point of a magic tax, or the idea of having a tax in a game, where he says, by the way, in the Dark Eye, wizards can heal a spell almost everyone chooses. And I'm not going to brutalize the German that's written there. Alex C says, you don't have a healer, then don't be reckless. I absolutely agree with that. I'm thinking, well, just play differently. We don't have a brick, or we don't have a tank with us. Okay, then don't stand in front of enemies and try to soak up damage. Like play different. And then as a dungeon master, allow your players to play different. Vincent says, I just like being flexible. So rogues and wizards is where it's at. I just don't like being limited to attack. And that's based on the system, right? If the gaming system's option to attack is just attack, and then the magic system is like, oh, I get 30 different choices, then you're going to go from one to the other. If you're playing in a martial system that allows you to trick and trip and attack and go all in, or used various tactics and things, and then the magic system is very difficult, then you're going to find that doing physical attacks is better than the other attacks. Azala says, I'm very tired of high fantasy games. I really want to play a game like the Conan universe. Magic is rare, but when it shows up, holy shit. Yeah, that method, and the One Ring and the 5th edition setting for Lord of the Rings is Middle Earth is very much like that. Basically, 95% martial characters, non-magic characters, and then very limited spell choices and abilities. If you want to play a mystic of some sort, better to play a martial character in those settings. Let's look at the chat. Yeah, Alex, he says use the spells that's already there, just rename it and tweak it a bit to fit. Absolutely. And there's nothing stopping you from tweaking any and all your spells to tweak the fit, especially if you want to flavor certain cultures or factions in your world, and they call it something else and it has a different thing. You can even reflavor the results of it. Who's to say that a lightning bolt can't be a necrotic bolt, or a fire bolt, or a gravity bolt, a blinding bolt, a bolt of cold, and you just use the same ability and have it come from a different source. I would beware if you're going to do something like a psychic bolt or something, because there's not very many defenses against it. They didn't create a lot of parity when it comes to damage sources in 5th edition, but you could absolutely do that. Yeah, my magic missile doesn't do force damage. It does, I don't know, cold damage or something. Like, you're like, all right, fine, whatever. I don't know. I don't believe it's game breaking. Hazala says, last time I played a barbarian, I cleared out an entire bar without even drawing weapons, smashed one guy's face into a torch sconce, beat another with a stool. I love that stuff. I love it when players do that. Just that's great. Vincent says, I always flavor my spellcaster to a certain theme. Don't just be a mage, be a techno mage or an ice mage, a shapeshifter, a fungomancer. Yeah, you don't have to have specific abilities to do that. And I love playing characters that are, within the game system, they have limitations, but you're playing them to a specific theme. I played a character that was I made a mage that was infected, and all the spells were forms of like infection leaving his body, which made it a limitation on picking other spells. But I was like, whatever, it's my character, I can play what I want. Yeah, Azala says, just because you're playing a melee character doesn't mean you have to go, I hit him with my sword. Of course, and that's the thing, right? Like if you've already made up your mind that combat's boring, then it will be. But if you want to make it more dynamic in your game, whether you're the game master or you're a player, then go for it. It's just it's being collaborative, right? If someone wants to play a martial character and they want to be creative, then it's incumbent upon the DM to go, oh, this person wants to be creative. Let them be creative, and pull the tapestry off the wall. Hell yeah. Trip the guy, whatever. Of course. Kick him backwards and so he falls over a chair. Absolutely. Swing from the chandeliers. That's what it's there for. That's where you have to be collaborative. And when someone wants to do those things and say, yeah, go ahead, go for it. Foolish Kiwi says, Flame Princesses also has a neat take on magic, where magic isn't necessarily always useful, as in damage or the regular sense of the word, but more strange and intense and even really self-dangerous. And I like magic systems that have a danger to them, just because just as mentioned earlier about I believe it was Janny that mentioned that it takes away the mysticism of it, the mystery, and having dangerous magics used, and even magics that have side effects that push the story forward, like being a beacon for some kind of, I don't know, magic sensing hounds that run after you, or every time you cast a spell, it may awaken a great elemental evil, or spells that somehow open a portal to another realm that allows chaos to wreak havoc or whatever. Or, even when you go to rest, you start having nightmares, or the spirits of the dead start, flocking around you or something like that. Milk spoils, those kind of things. When you come into a room, flowers wilt, animals hate you and go wild. I like those kind of side effects. Alex C says my Sonics is based off of the sorcerer instead of spell slots. It has spell points. Exactly. Why not have sorcerer? Just a sorcerer is a psionic, and they have spell points, and their quote unquote spells are not spells at all. They're psionic disciplines by just changing the word, and you're done. I think that's perfect. That's absolutely perfect. Rickard says, better late than never. You're fine. Alex C says, and the monk has spell-like abilities that can be used as special techniques, such as a crippling blow hex. Absolutely. And of course, if you're, you want to go crazy and talk about Dragon Ball Z or something like that, I mean, those are basically like superpowers or spell-like abilities, right? They're not really martial arts powers when you're splitting mountains and flying at Mach 3, right? I mean, they are described as martial powers, but they're not. You could easily just say, if you're playing, like, say, Mutants and Masterminds or Marvel superheroes or DC's very ancient but one of my favorites, Mayfair game system, you can just give them flight and energy blast and I don't know, whatever kind of invulnerability or something like that, and just describe it as martial. I mean, even in 5th edition, if you want to play 5th edition Dungeons and Dragons and do it as a very medieval Eastern style with kung fu and karate and all those kind of things, just flavor it different. You don't even need to change the rules. That magic missile becomes I dance around, using my kata, and then blast forth my chi from my hands. That's all you got to do. I got to put some flavor into this. Alex C says, I punched the fool in the throat, DM, okay? -5 on attack roll. Player Y, DM, it's called a shot. Well, you know what? That's it. I think risk reward is a big thing, right? Like if you're a DM and you get kind of like confused or distraught or scared when a player wants to do odd things, like, punch somebody in the throat or kick them in the groin or pull the tapestry off the wall or grab his cloak and pull it over his head and things like that. My thing is give and take. Like my ruling is always give and take. Risk reward, right? So if you're going to apply a penalty to do something like that, the reward should be the benefit of getting it. Or just don't apply a difficulty at all and just let them do it and let the end result be fall what may, right? So for example, like in 5th edition, basically punching somebody is you roll a hit and then you do 1 point plus whatever your strength bonus is. And that's nothing, right? That's in Dungeons and Dragons, punching somebody in the chest is nothing. But if you say, well, I want to punch him in the throat, I would say, okay, well, instead of doing hit point damage, how about, causing them to be stunned or something, or they've got to make a con check against your strength, roll because you punched them in the throat. So to see if they're stunned or give the -5. But if you make it, then you get to do the damage plus the stun plus the, I would do something like that. Like I think give and take is great. If you're going to do a penalty, let the benefit come at the end, or if you give them a bonus to hit or achieve what they're going to do, then the end result might be lacking. Otherwise, I just wouldn't even bother modifying it at all, because if you want to encourage that out of your players, then you got to let them do it. Rickard says the problem with that in D&D is that it's always suboptimal thing to do in the action economy. Exactly. And if you want some, I'm a very cinematic vision type of person, so I fall on the side of wanting players to be the heroes, and that when someone is doing something that by the rules is suboptimal, but in reality would be quite effective, I default to the far more effective. I caused some problems. Azala says, I want to throw the tapestry on him. DM, it's an exotic weapon. You're untrained. Whatever, right? You know what I mean? It's things like that, right? Where someone's just like, well, it's an exotic weapon, you're untrained in it, you get a penalty, and you're picking up a chair, you want to hit someone in the head with it, it's a improvised weapon, D4 damage. It's like, no, that's not exactly what the rule says. It's like, let sometimes you got to let things go and let them be what they are. If a barbarian picks up a friggin' table and hits someone in the head with it, it is not going to do a D4 damage. It's you might as well call it a pole arm, right? It's way up there. And a big giant table, I'd probably let him hit more than one person with it. Now, it may not last very long. Big barbarian wooden table, not necessarily a weapon, but I'd let him go for it. Oh yeah, you can hit like 3 people with that damn table. You big lummox. So Vincent says, does anyone know the name of this RPG, which is focused on summoning a demon and how you interact with them, which plays like, how much are you willing to sacrifice for what you want? Vince, why do you do that to me? I know the game you're talking about, and I can't think of it. And it is, the magic system literally is summoning and bargaining with demons. Or a demon. Like you basically summon a demon, and a demon grants you powers, but little by little you start to go down the slippery slope as it asks for more and more from you. Oh, I probably have the PDF and I'll have to search it, and it'll take me too long to do it. Oh man, I know exactly what game you're talking about too. Rickard says to Azala, or no, what the heck is this? Yeah, or Zala says, Rickard says to Zala, or no damage, and the target might only need to use a bonus action or such to remove it. So you've done no damage and not really hindered the enemy either. And Azala responds that that's why strict rules adherence is a bad thing, in my opinion. Well, if for some reason people don't like to quote the rule that says, if the rule doesn't work for you, don't use it. That's a rule. That's a printed rule in the book. If the rule doesn't work for your game or your table, then don't use it. Like no one ever quotes that when talking about rule systems, which kind of bothers me a little bit, because it's like, if you're going to be a rules lawyer, don't rules lawyer and only pick one or another. Like if you're going to rules lawyer something, like go for it. I've pushed you guys down the rabbit hole. Sorry. Janie says, I'm planning on kicking off a low magic Shadowrun setting, and if there's any spellcaster characters, I'm going to make them question their sanity. Yeah, instead of casting level 3 fireball, describe unnatural events in more detail. Give the caster lingering effects from the action, like the feeling of burning in his hands a day after the spell. I like that. I like lingering effects. Foolish Kiwi says, biggest problem with D&D sounds like a lot of people are afraid of telling min-maxer players to stop metagaming so hard, and players settling for a rule bully DM. Never be afraid to speak up. Absolutely. And then another thing is, don't be afraid to speak up, and don't be afraid to try new things. Like if it doesn't work for your table, then you can always, everything has an asterisk next to it. Like, you know what, guys, we really wanted to do for our table, we tried something far more narrative and to be, rules loose, but it just does, it's not working for us. We tried it, so let's go back to the old way. I mean, that's a possibility, right? Maybe, or maybe you're playing with somebody who's a rules bully. Like you're saying, like maybe there's someone who just is always trying to meta game an advantage out of it, whether it's the game master or dungeon master. Yeah, Alex C says it's called trial and error. If you don't try it, you'll never know what the results are. And it could be that maybe there's players who want to play martial characters, and it's lacking of rules, or we're lacking description, or you're not allowing us to do strange and odd and cinematic things. And if the game master's like, oh, I didn't realize I was doing that. Okay, I'll be more flexible next time. And then you try it, and then if it works and the players love it, and you're like, wow, that's cool. Maybe they do want to play barbarians and fighters and rangers and rogues now, because I was so hard on them before. I mean, we can all learn. I'm always learning. I've been role playing for 40 years, and I'm an idiot. I don't know anything. I can always learn from somebody else. Rickard says, I will admit that min-maxing isn't a problem unless it's one player trying to outshine the other players, right? If everyone's doing it, including the DM and all the players, that's not really min-maxing. That's just them playing the game. If you've got one person doing it to outshine, to steal the spotlight, to abuse a DM who may not be as familiar with rules and how things work, if you're just being an abusive person, it's not really the rules, it's the person. You're just using that individual is using the rules as a scapegoat for their own, psychological push, whatever it is. Zala says, one person I played with always tried to make characters as powerful as possible. I'm weak and useless in real life. If I'm going to play, I want to feel powerful, at least in the game. Instead of gas hogs, they're light hogs. Yeah, yeah, exactly. The problem with I want to feel powerful is I want to feel powerful at the expense of other people, right? I want to feel powerful at the expense of taking away the enjoyment of other people at the table, and that's where you're wrong. There's nothing wrong with playing games where you're powerful. There's plenty of games. You play vampire, play werewolf, play Mage Ascension. Your character starts out as kick-ass. Play a superhero game. Play Feng Shui, where you're an action hero. You automatically start out as a kick-ass character. You're powerful, but then when you take that power level and then you want to then step above and beyond the people you're playing with and create a character that is so far above and beyond what your DM has the experience to handle, then you're just being an a-hole, right? You're saying my enjoyment is far more important than the people around me. Rules be damned. So okay, we went down a rabbit hole and I pushed you guys down there. No more carrots, guys. Let's come back up. Let's deep breath. We were talking about favorite mechanic systems, and I end up bringing up Magic, which I do understand is pretty out there, right? But there are other today, like yesterday was World Building Wednesday, which someone very kindly reminded me. Today is Third Pillar Thursday, although very generally. One thing I wanted to bring up is effort and aspects, and for mechanical systems, and the idea of having like effort and aspects. Yeah, we went down the min-max rabbit hole. You know what? Maybe this is just a suggestion, and I don't know if you guys want to do this. Maybe we could have a blow-off week, a whole week where we take everything we hate and despise and just pick a thing and we just beat it to death. Like we just let it all hang out, like all week, like every day we go after the min-maxers, the overpowered characters, the metagamer, the drama queen, the spotlight hog, like blow off. Azala says, I would love that idea. Wait a minute. Whoa. We went for all caps now. Easy. Yes, blow off week. Yeah, you know what? We'll do that. It won't be next week. I did promise a certain theme for next week. No, we're not going to do it next week. We will do it though. We'll just damn. Alex is like, I'm going. I'll see you next week. Oh. Foolish Kiwi say, sorry, my beer types in all caps. That's awesome. That is awesome. Yeah, XC is like, I'm GTFO now. I'll see you next week where I get to blow off steam. Yeah, we'll do that. That sounds like a lot of fun. All right, back on point. Aspects and effort. There aren't, as the third pillar of exploration seems to be my thing. I like games. I like to gravitate towards some games that allow you to do that really well. And one thing that I really like from yes, I know I plugged it before, Index Card RPG is boom, there we go. Index Card RPG is the idea of effort. Very simply put, when you make your character, you have your standard six stat array, strength, dex, con, etc. And then you have on the other part of your character sheet, which I believe fits on a 3x5 card, you get to pick a die. Let's see if I got a character sheet up here real close. So you got your stat array, boom, 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 and then over here you have come on, focus it. You have dice, basic, weapon, magic, that kind of thing, right? And basic is right here. It's called basic effort. That's your weapon damage. You see it as D4, D6, D8 as magic, D12 ultimate. Now, of course, depending on your character type, those things can change, right? So basically, this is what standard characters have. You may not even have any magic, but if you use your basic ability, that's you pick up a weapon. If you have magic, you use that die. If you roll a crit, that's what die you roll. But that's the basic part of it. Now you have characters that can modify that. So what is basic? Basic is called basic effort, and basic effort basically means that you roll when attempting to perform an action. Yeah, it is pretty cool. Foolish Kiwi, thanks. Whenever you're attempting to perform an action, you use the exact same rules and techniques you would do for an attack. So this isn't Dungeons and Dragons, but of course it's based on the basic rules. You roll against, when you attack someone, you roll to hit their armor class, and then you roll for their damage. That's it, right? Actually, to continue on this little thing here, let's see if I can pull this out here. Right. All right. So there we go. There's some there's a smaller version of it. Let's see if we focus. Okay, so you have your basic stat array on here. You have the dice on that side. You see down right here? See these hearts? Each heart is 10. Each heart is 10 hit points. So a character starts with 10 hit points, and as you go up in level, you get it's 10, 20, 30, 40, 50, and everything's measured in hearts. Everything. So if you, let's say you're in a dungeon and the dungeon is flooding with water and you're being attacked by lizard people that are accustomed to living underground and in the water, and you're going to die if it hits you, right? So the rogue goes over to the door, and the rogue's like, I want to pick the lock, or jimmy the bolts out the door and open up the door. And the barbarian comes over and is like, listen, if you can't do that, I'm gonna knock it down with my axe. And everyone else is fighting lizard people. So the PC's fighting the lizard people. They roll there to hit their armor class. They roll to do damage to the hit points of the lizard people. But what happens to the people trying to take down the door? Do you do skill checks? Is it strength bonuses? Blah, blah, blah. Well, in ICRPG, no. In ICRPG, there's something called room difficulty, DC. Basically, you pick the game master picks a difficulty. Let's say it's 12. If you pick 12, that means everything to play. It's a metagaming thing, but follow me on this. Everything you need to do in the room, instead of coming up with different difficulties and different armor classes and stuff, guess what? The armor class of hitting those lizard people is 12. The difficulty to break through the door is 12. The difficulty to climb up the wall is 12. The difficulty to hide behind the rocks in the cave as this place starts to fill it with water is 12. It's just 12. Just pick one number, boom, that's it. That way everybody knows what they need. There's no confusion, right? But okay, so you have to roll above a 12 to break through the door. Do they do it in 1 round, 10 rounds? How long does it take them? Guess what? The door has 1 heart, 10 hit points. Just like those lizard people may have had 1 heart or 2 hearts, 10 hit points or 20. Guess what? Door has 1 heart. You got to do 10 points. And it's not damage. It's effort. So guess what? You take your character sheet and you go, my character just has a basic effort of, my character has a basic effort of D4, right? I roll a D4. I do 3 points to it, right? Plus my strength bonus or something. So I do 4 points to it. Okay, the door needs 6 more points of effort to get through it. That's exactly how that works. Now, some characters, depending on how you pick, maybe your effort ability goes up if you're playing like a character that's very skilled, so your effort goes up. Some characters have higher, a larger die for their weapon, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And I like that ability because it literally means that that people who are using the environment use the exact same effectiveness as the people who are doing the attacks. And I like the parity in that. That means that whether you're running a classic dungeon and you're fighting monsters, or you want to, you know what, I'm tired of fighting monsters. I want them to run across broken rope bridges. I want them to be caught in avalanches. I want them to run across, frozen lakes and things. Use the exact same. There's nothing else to think about as a game master. You don't need a different set of rules. You don't have to change your mindset. Just go, okay, how many hearts? What's the difficulty? Go for it. And I like that. Alex C says, yeah, I hate to do this. What about one-shot ponies? Good at one thing and suck at everything else. We're going to have to make a list of people to beat up on, right? But no, I absolutely agree with you. The problem with one-shot ponies, glass cannons, people who are min-maxed to the extreme is that there's only one outcome for that. And the reason for that one outcome, let me take you down a path. Okay, squirrel, let me take you down the path here. When a person builds a character based around one ability, whether it is charming people, whether it's hitting things with their axe, whether it's being the fastest, whether it's being able to hide and all these kind of things, it only goes one direction. And it's a very disappointing direction. The player who creates that character is excellent at one thing, and they have a lot of fun doing it when they get the chance. When they're in a situation, let's say you want to make a character whose ability is to hide. They are never seen ever doing anything. Okay. And they go into the city. I'm going to hide in the city. Great. You have to go before the king. I'm going to hide. Why and where? Okay. We're going into the castle. Okay. I'm going to hide. There's no place to hide. Right. And what happens when you pick a one-trick wonder is you either the few times you get to use your ability, you dominate. After that, when you're in situations where we're negotiating, we're swimming across a lake, we're fighting in a cavern, we are traveling down a path, you're doing nothing. My character isn't good at talking with people. My character doesn't heal. My character can't fly. I can only hit things with my axe. I can't fight that thing flying through the air. I made a character who's just good at hitting things with his axe. And then frustration starts to build. So does the game master get blamed for not putting you in situations where you get to shine all the time? There are other people you're playing with. Is the game master going to get beat up because they put a challenge in front of your one-shot character, right? If you're I hit things with my axe character, fight something where your axe is useless against it, are you being nerfed all of a sudden? Well, no. It's maybe the game master wanted to give you a challenge to rethink, hey, you're fighting golems. It's useless to hit it with an axe. Think of another way around it. And so what ends up happening is all it does is build frustration. If you make a one-trick pony, not only have you limited your involvement in a game, hey, I could only do this one thing. It also means that you have decreased your percentage of involvement. Hey, I'm only good at 10% of things in the game. The other 90%, I'm going to fold my arms and be frustrated when we do those things. And that means either the game master has to shape the entire game around you, or put challenges in front of you that are unrealistically easy so you can shine, or the game master basically gets blamed for not creating a setting in which only you shine doing your one thing. Now, you can play a character if you want to play Lone Wolf and Cub, and you want to play a samurai who's only good at killing things, but you're taking care of a small child, and the whole point of the character is that I'm not good at other things. Cool. Yeah, Poo says you're so easy to take off trail. DBJ. Yeah, squirrel. So we are heading towards the hour mark, with a couple of minutes from the hour mark. Yesterday, I don't know what the hell happened with all the the weird floofly floof in the video or something like that, because it taped like that. Like I put up a warning because I know some people can be overstimulated visually, so I put up a warning in there. It's kind of crazy. I know we were coming up to the hour mark, so being distracted is not a big deal. Lastly, I will say Fate. Fate is a game that gets beat up on a lot. There's no middle ground. People either love it or hate it. And I love the idea of aspects. And aspects, Fate is extremely Alex sees that I take the cat's name as Squirrel. It's from a movie where the dogs and whatever easily distracted, going after. Yeah. Ricker says, we can all agree that squirrel is the word for we're off topic. Absolutely. Yeah. It was from Up. Yeah. Yeah. The dogs had the collars that allowed them to speak. And so you could hear the dog's thoughts as the dog is panting. And every time the dog got distracted, he would just look over and like scream like, squirrel. It was like, yeah. Up, great movie. Dude, the first 5 minutes of that movie, so depressing. Great movie, but I'm just saying, like, wow. Like kids movie, this is not family movie, yes, but kids movie, I think some parents probably were like, what was that scene about? I don't get it. I want a DBJ squirrel get. Somebody out there could probably create one. But let's end it on Fate because Fate causes problems. Fate has an extremely simple die system. It's basically 4D3, which is kind of weird to say. It's a 4D3 system. The D3 is made up with their dice, basically with a plus, a minus, and a blank. So a plus is like is a +1, and a minus is a -1, and a blank is a 0. And so you roll 4D dice, 4D3, and then you plus or minus them up or down. Yeah, Disney, Tesla Rangers. Disney, you make me cry. Absolutely. Yeah, they do. Yeah, they do. More than a little bit, if you really think about it. If you really go back in their archives, like most of their, you start talking Dumbo and Bambi and stuff. Yeah, you start out crying. It's a cry fest. It's brutal. I swear to you, when you're a kid. Oh my goodness. Yeah, Disney got away with it. Inside Out is another one. Man, that movie had me giving man tears so much. I was just like, no, what the hell? Yeah, Inside Out is a great movie. I would love a role-playing game based on that. Although Everyone is John is probably the closest thing to it that already exists. Squirrel Fate system has created something called aspects, and aspects are like also known as tags in Dresden Files, but I prefer the word aspect because it just sounds like I'm smarter. And aspects are basically things that exist in and around your setting. So an aspect could be building on fire. Aspect could be crumbling roof. Aspect could be crowded streets. Anything that can impact the environment at all for any reason. And sometimes those aspects can become Vincent says the PC game Psychonauts is very similar to Inside Out. Oh, I'm gonna look that up. Psychonauts. Write this down. Nauts. All right. So and aspects can be created by players through their actions. Some aspects come and go, and that kind of thing. And those aspects can add modifiers both for and against what you're trying to do. And in general, when you're rolling dice to attack the bad guys, to overcome an obstacle or something like that, those aspects can modify that quite a bit. So let's say the dilapidated abandoned building, you're fighting a bad guy, and you can say, well, I want to use I rolled high enough, so I'm going to use the aspects of abandoned building to kick the bad guy into the wall that's brittle and will fall down through the drywall or something. And so that bonus can, affect them. All right, baby. Bye, babe. Call me when you get off the computer. Okay, I will. Love you. So the idea of using aspects is that they can, in general, they can modify and help you beat up bad guys and stuff. But also, since aspects can be layered in just about anything, right? it's a very easy way to say, oh, well, an aspect, because most aspects give you like a +2 bonus or a -2 or something. So you can stack aspects, and since you don't really have to add or subtract anything that's hard to do, since they're all +2s, +2 -2s, then you just say, hey, the abandoned building that's on fire. Let's see, it's an abandoned building that's +2, and it's on fire. That's another +2. That's a +4. Boom. I kick the bad guy into the burning, the burning wall in the abandoned building, and you're done. Now you don't have to do that in your own game if you're trying to design something, but layering aspects is a great way to you can use in a game if you want to simulate using the environment without having to like come up with a brand new rule system in your game. Yeah, Vincent says it's weird that there's not Go Into the Mind Space RPG yet. I wonder about that too. Because maybe it's just the idea of mapping the mind. Like you would have to, in order to make a setting like that, you'd have to go through things like, the subconscious and dreams and like start to create like a mental setting. There's a game called Dream Blade that it's been canceled. Dream Blade is a miniatures game that was created by Wizards of the Coast, and it was a combination miniatures game and card game that played on a board. And the setting for Dream Blade, oh shoot, I actually have something here. I'll hold it up. Dream Blade rule book. Dream Blade was let's see if I can find some artwork here. Dream Blade was this is just the rule book I'm flipping through, but Dream Blade was the bottom of the, oh shit, you're gonna make me do this. Yeah, you're gonna make me do it. Okay, here we go. Dream Blade. You see down there, they look like little miniatures and things like that. The base of the miniatures was square and had information on it, kind of like Magic the Gathering cards. So they had like these symbols and they had these abilities and things like that on them. And you move them around the dreamscape, which was like a board. And the cool thing about it, because I actually thought about making a role-playing game out of this. I kind of did, but I just never played it. But anyway, in here you have a fear, passion, honor, and madness. And those were like your 4 categories / powers / alliances and things. So fear, valor. There we go. Fear, valor, madness, and passions. Oh man, sorry about that. The glitch is back. Damn it. Okay, well maybe that they're telling me like you need to get the hell off this this computer. Guys, we'll do this tomorrow. Thank you very much for being part of it. I know if you're following this series for any reason, everybody who's in the chat, thank you for joining me. It's been the hour. You guys have been here far too kind with me. I ended up watching. Yeah, Vince, have a good day. Prue, everybody. You guys don't have to stick around. But for those who don't know, I had I had some fun. Yeah. You know what? By the way, that will be a theme. We're just going to let our hair down and just bitch a whole week long one day. I'll let you know ahead of time so you guys can prepare. You know what I mean? You start flexing your mental muscles. Like I'm a beat up on those min-maxers. We'll do that. Guys, join the Discord. Ricker says be in the Discord. I would love to be in there. I gotta get ready for work. But long story short is, listen, guys, you need to let me know to make the show better. I listened to my show yesterday, and all the hell I did was say and ugh and You gotta let me know. I need to make a conscious effort not to do that anymore. Wine week, that's a good one. Wine week. Oh, everything's better with wine. Anyway, I'm sorry it's glitching out. I'm not seeing the glitch, but it's something with YouTube. So anyway, guys, you guys have a good day. I'm going to end the stream awkwardly now.